We're done with the 90s. Let's talk about the hottest trend currently on basketball TikTok. It all started with a video of someone saying that Michael Jordan had no left hand. Now, he cited Isaiah Thomas saying that, as well as he cut up a video showing Michael Jordan trying to go to his left and failing, either losing the ball or making a bad shot. Now, here's the thing. Everyone knows that that video was intentionally made to deceive audiences in believing that Michael Jordan had no left hand whatsoever and was only a right-sided player. However, anyone that's actually followed basketball for a while or has watched enough Michael Jordan games or even highlights has seen that he can use his left hand. But I want to talk about something else more interesting. This trend seems to be an excellent case study on how quickly a narrative can be formed, and then it spread like absolute wildfire across the internet, as long as there's some people that it can confirm they're biased. And what is this bias, of course? It's that LeBron James is the basketball GOAT. He is better than Michael Jordan, and that the old heads had been lying to them, and that 90s basketball just wasn't as good as the modern game. And now, here's the thing. This conversation is actually very, very complicated. I've had similar conversations on my channel about the soccer GOAT, the Cristiano Ronaldo versus Lionel Messi debate versus the Pelé versus Diego Maradona debate. And a lot of old heads still go with Pelé and Maradona, but the young kids think it's absolutely absurd to consider them to be as good as Ronaldo or Messi. Now, some people have pointed out that yes, it is true. Basketball and sports in general have improved over time. However, if we're actually being honest about this, we have to acknowledge that they were built on the backs of giants. The best example I can actually come up with is with soccer, and this man right here, Pelé. There's a video on Pelé called Pelé Did It First, and it shows Pelé doing all of these skills before players that came after him that are often credited for those skills, such as the Cruyff turn, such as the Rabona, and of course the bicycle kick. Pelé did it first, so a lot of the players that came after him simply would not have been able to do the same things without Pelé. And that's true in basketball with LeBron James as well. He was built on the backs of giants like Michael Jordan, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like Dr. J. Julius Erving, and much, much more. However, one other thing I'd like to point out with this debate is that while it's probably fair to say that the modern sport is better than older eras, I think some people exaggerate to the extent that this is true, especially if we're talking about the 90s. The 90s were not that long ago. 30 years is nothing in the grand scheme of things. And with Michael Jordan, his career overlapped with the main player who we think of as the best player in between Michael Jordan and LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. It overlapped with his career, considerably so, in fact. And Michael Jordan's last season with the Wizards, where he averaged 20 points a game, even as an old man, was in 2003. So the idea that Michael Jordan would not be a good player in the modern NBA is absolutely absurd to me. He would have been an excellent player. And of course, Kobe Bryant's career overlapped heavily with LeBron James's career, over a decade, in fact. And LeBron James, let's face it, the guy's pretty old and still doing amazingly well. So his career is going to be overlapping with the guy who we're going to be saying is better than both of them 10, 15 years from now. And the thing is that when we're comparing these generational talents, it's not as easy as saying one generation's better than the other, or even just comparing them to really what they're playing against. It's very, very complicated in reality, because one of the arguments that they like to make with Michael Jordan versus LeBron James is Michael Jordan did not have the three-point shooting. LeBron James picked up the three-point shooting. But when we look at the game back in the 90s, three-pointers were not the norm. They were not what you're supposed to do. In fact, it was normally discouraged to take too many 3-point shots because 2-point shots were considered higher percentage. However, the data analytics revolution has proven that we actually should take mainly 3-point shots, and the mid-range shot is actually the low percentage shot that's not worth taking. So, even with that, it's unfair to criticize Jordan for that, because if he came up in this era, he probably would have prioritized 3-point shooting, which would have only made him even more dangerous on the drive, and he might even have been a better player. We don't know. And there's other things that make it different. The defending was different back in the 90s. The physicality was different back in the 90s. And many other different things that in some cases make it maybe possibly even harder to play in the 90s. But there's also the reverse being true with the higher technical level of overall players, the higher 3-point shooting quality, and of course, tactics have evolved and gotten much, much better. So this is really always going to be very, very difficult hypotheticals, and there is no one correct answer. And yes, at the end of the day, it's going to be our emotional, subjective biases that decide this for us. I grew up watching basketball in the 90s. Michael Jordan was my hero, and he was literally every other kid I know's hero that followed sports of any kind. So for me, I'm probably never going to get over that. And I understand that for Gen Zers with LeBron James as well. But in 20, 30 years, you're going to be doing that against whoever is considered better than Michael or LeBron in that next generation. Just something to think about.